Good morning. I just said to Mark, I think we should give a prize for anybody who attends the last day. All right, well, this is your annual SMPTE update. Thomas and I are going to share this. I'm going to go through a little bit of what we're doing at the board level, and Thomas will, of course, focus on our standards work. So, we're 103 years old. The times are changing. Again, over the years, of course, SMPTE has traveled from film to television to digital, and we've successfully evolved, and so we're at it again. And as you know, at our centennial, we were talking about the need to really set out a proper 3-year business plan. And believe it or not, the society over the years, at least in recent history, didn't have such a plan. And so off we went to build a plan, and we called it Vision 2020. Shocking, I know. And part of that plan was to really talk to some values and guiding principles. We talk about being a global organization and that we operate, you all know that we operate under our 3 pillars of standards, membership, and education, that we are an inclusive organization, and while that may not be evident right now, that is something that we are actively working towards, that we value and nurture our volunteers. This organization does not survive without the good support from our active volunteers, that we strive to understand the needs of all of our stakeholders in their various forms, that we are objective, that we care about the technology and very objective view of that. And we want to realize our synergies with our partners such as HPA, and that's why, of course, this is an important activity for us. And then a big part of our new strategy is that we begin to operate like a business. And that means we need to look for surplus at the end of the year so we can constantly invest in the organization. So you'll start seeing a lot more of that as we move forward. Part of the exercise was to create a vision and a mission statement, which, again, we did not have. The vision talks to the foundation of technical excellence in our fields of interest. And our mission is really talking about that famous, now famous statement that our president likes to talk to, and that's the art and science of storytelling, which is precisely why we value the partnership with the HPA. And what this means is that for our members, we enable them to increase their personal value and advance their careers while they enjoy participating and collaborating with those peers. For the industry, it allows us to help maximize their market and at the lowest possible cost. And for our partners, it allows the industry to attract the best people, ideas, and capital. That led then to creating some strategic goals. We have a very prescribed strategic vision for the 3 years. We talk about our 3 pillars, our operations, and of course our partnerships. And this is leading towards a great deal of change and investment that the board approved at the October meeting 2018, which kicked off the 3-year plan. We will be publishing this document, and you'll be seeing much more about this in the coming weeks as we talk to that. So every year, the board comes together, actually here at the tech retreat a couple days before, and we have a strategy session. And so now we're looking at Vision 2022, right, because we've added a year, but we're no longer looking to the future so much as we're refining and aligning and making sure that we're not changing our plan, but rather talking to how do we adjust it, get new inputs, and understand what the future looks like. So on Sunday earlier this week, we had a big strategy session, and we invited a few young people. These young people we are defining as 6G. Why 6G, you ask? Well, SMPTE's 103 years old. If a human generation is basically 20 years, we're entering into our 6th generation. And we love our 6th generation because that is, of course, our future. And one of the things that we're looking to do is, in typical business form, attract, engage, and delight the 6G. So what did we do? We invited a few of these young people to speak to us. You have a fellow by the name of Jack, Alice, Brian, Kyle, Josh, and Monica. There was actually another young man who unfortunately took ill that day, but he was there in spirit. And all of these are young professionals, with the exception of Brian, who comes from a young company at Facebook. And they spent the day with us, helping us to understand why they, actually many of them, with the exception of Josh, had no interaction with SMPTE or HPA at all, and they came to tell us what they thought. And so we did a bit of brainstorming and brain steering to really get at what is it that we can do to attract, engage, and delight this next generation. And so we recorded the day. And here's Alice telling us how she engages with the next generation.
See how I'm doing and give me advice. And if someone is a member of SMPTE or HPA, someone who actually reached out to me personally and said, by the way, do you have any questions? Or, come, if it's at a company, gather a small group of young people and introduce them to this the society and membership that they're a part of, then young people sort of have this more intimate introduction to sort of what we perceive as almost kind of like a cold association, we don't know that much about it.
We don't want to be viewed as a cold association. So this was a really exciting day, and we're going to continue to engage with this group. You can see at the end of the day, we did our famous pizzazz shot, and you can see that everybody really was enthusiastic even after a long 8 hours, and we're actually in the process of putting together a little bit of PR around this effort. We are engaging with this group to look at how we can continue to include them in our plans and how they can help change SMPTE, even at the board level. Having more voices from this next generation is going to be critically important. And as part of that, I just wanted to highlight who your new executive group is among SMPTE. Of course, Pat is now our president for a 2-year term, which means Matthew moves into a past president role, and Hans Hoffman is our new executive vice president, who is responsible for all the strategy work. And of course, I'm really pleased that we also are building some diversity even in our executive committee here and also on the board. I think we have 4 women on the board, and so we're very excited. So last but not least, I'm going to ask, how many of you here are SMPTE members? A lot. Well, that's great. Well, that's wonderful. And to you, I say, join in even more. If you're not a member, I say, join us and join in. This is an exciting time for SMPTE. We love and need a lot of input and active volunteers to help us achieve our goals, and you're welcome to join us and bring a young person with you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Bause-Mason to talk about some of the standards work we're doing.
Thank you. And I guess I have to hurry up so I don't fall a victim to the Schumann horn of death. So my name is Thomas Bause-Mason. I'm the Director of Standards Development at SMPTE. So I'm fairly new. I'm the new guy. I started last year, April, I think, so it's not even a year. So I'm learning the ropes and I'm learning my responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities is to give a SMPTE update here at HPA. So I obviously went to my boss and said, so what do you expect me to show? And she said, well, there are no real rules. It's kind of up to you. And but make sure it's something fun, So fun doesn't come naturally to me. And I thought, what should I do? So I thought I'd reflect on this a little bit and look at what I am about, right? So first of all, I'm German. So that's not disqualifying, right? So there are Germans who are funny, and they can have good ideas. There's the Hollywood beer lines, right? That's funny, right? So I'm also an engineer, right? So I worked in post-production in LA for 6 years. I lived in London for 1.5 years. I supported my company there on the international market. And then I came back to New York. I'm currently in New York, and I worked there for big American broadcasters for 11 years. And now I'm with SMPTE. So not really too much fun, right? But okay. I have also a programmer background. So I started out in Germany in process automation. Did a lot of work in the nuclear industry, car manufacturers, all that kind of things, software development, databases, all that kind of stuff. So this is all not really fun, right? So I thought maybe I look for proof that I'm really not fun, right? So I looked at my passport, and this is my, clearly I'm not fun, right? So, and then on top of that, I got this from PowerPoint, right? When I did the slide. Sorry, no design ideas for this slide, right? Boring. So I had to come up with something, and I'm fairly insecure about what I did. So I hope, I'm not offending anybody. Here we go. So I hope it's not the end of my job, and it's perceived as fun, right, Barbara and Pat?
We're worried about the Schubenhorn.
Well, there are many concerns I have, right? So the next slide I couldn't pass up, so it might be a bit offending, Pat, Barbara, but I thought it's so awesome I had to show it here. Oops. I thought this is awesome. Clearly, I asked Pat and Barbara before this presentation if I actually can show this. I really didn't want to lose my job, to be honest. And funny enough, they both said, well, that looks more like Bruce. Sorry, Bruce, if you're in the room. Anyway, Schluss mit lustig. Let's talk about something serious. There are challenges coming to SMPTE, right? And one of these challenges is more and more software development, software projects we have to deal with. So there are already quite a few software projects we're dealing with, reference software for our mezzanine codecs. There's a general software development we're doing for test software, right? Spit out some numbers, do some measurements. And with this software development comes issue tracking we have to do, new feature requests, if we want to have extend our software. We started looking to support our next generation publishing pipeline. We started looking into document development, formats like HTML, XML, Markdown. What do we use to create these documents? And we have a bit of an IMF problem here. It's what is going to be our core format for these documents, and then we have to deliver against this variety of output formats, EPUB, text, HTML, Word, PDF, you name it. So and we started looking into how software tools can help us there. Then maybe we're going to start in future doing some open source projects. That's something we discussed. And maybe even, see how that ties into the Academy Software Foundation, right? So they have a project there. So in general, I think SMPTE has to become more software friendly, and we have to look at tools. We shouldn't prescribe tools. We should look at tools software developers use to develop their code. What does it really mean in detail for SMPTE? Well, first of all, more MEMS, right? I found this one. I thought that was funny. Yeah. It's a hardware problem. But also more cat photos, right? So we're going to see more cat photos. I'm a cat lover. I have 2 of them. I like Maine Coons. So this actually goes out to Roberta if she's in the room. She's a cat lover too. But it also, as I said, means we have to look at tools we have to deploy. Tools software developer use. We started looking into Trello as a project management tool for our projects. We started looking into Slack for collaboration. And the main piece, which we already implemented, is a GitHub account. SMPTE has a GitHub account now. And that is really for us to host SMPTE software projects, to do this issue tracking, new feature tracking, reporting out to the SMPTE community about what's going on in the software development project, and also maybe assign responsibilities, right? We have a group in SMPTE, a study group on software, which I think turned now in a task force and is accessible to everybody in the SMPTE standards community. So if you're in SMPTE, you can join that. If you have software development expertise, take part. And this group is really supposed to help SMPTE to regulate GitHub and the use of GitHub for our standards development process, and also help people who are unfamiliar with GitHub, how can they get involved. We developed some documents, reports, one on guidance of how this software development process can work in a standards development process. We have standards which come together with source code. How do we run that through our balloting process, for example, right? So we laid out some rules, developed some rules how we can do that. And then we have guidance on issue tracking. How do you report bugs? We have our own severity definition for how do you categorize bugs, who do you report to, and who do you tell about these bugs, and what consequences do they have for the document development process. So there's quite a bit of stuff there. Again, I encourage you to join if you have interest in this area. We want to make SMPTE more searchable. That's the other thing, right? There's this very known programmer, ma'am, right? It's more about Googling. That was my experience, right? If you have problems, you Google, and then you go to something like Stack Overflow and see if there's an answer there. So, but it also means that if somebody is Googling for SMPTE content, we should be able to serve him whatever he needs to know. So we're trying to, or she, yes. We have an effort to bring us more information on the SMPTE website. As a first step, for example, we made the standards index, which was PDF. We made that in HTML, and then put references into the IEEE store. So you easily can find a standard and then also find right away the place where you can buy it, right? And it also exposes information to Google, so it becomes all more searchable. We have the RDD process now on the SMPTE website, so you can learn about how to do RDDs and what they cost. And the TSP, the technical specification you heard about maybe, is out there too. We also have to become more agile, and that's where these technical specifications come in. We really have to kind of, like for these software development projects, find a way how we can offer a fast-track process to bring specifications into the open domain. And the TSP is one way. It's very short-term effort, and you can iterate through your specification, change it very quickly. And once you feel that a specification is stable enough, you can go and make a standard out of it. Bruce always says, the technical specification is half a standard. So we really try to align the technical specifications process with the OMs and our SMPTE process, right? So that's really the SMPTE technical specification process. And if you want more information, here's the URL to it. You can go to the SMPTE website under the standards menu. You find it right away. Next up, liaisons. I thought I'd give you a little update on who we're dealing with outside of SMPTE. We have a very close relationship to EBU. We are in process of signing an MOU, and we hope that we have then monthly meetings maybe, right? And I would encourage the SMPTE leadership to push Hans Hoffman to look at the MOU and get it signed. Then we're co-founder of the JTNM. We work there together with AMWA, VSF, and EBU on harmonizing IP work in the industry. Obviously, we have an interest with ST 2110, ST 2022, and ST 2059 to be involved in that work. And we also take part in the IP showcase, which you may know or not, right? AES, we have monthly calls with AES technical folks to talk about joint projects, update each other on what's going on in these organizations, right? We have a really close relationship there, so that's good. IETF, we just started talks, so I reached out to IETF. I went to the meeting last year to give a presentation on SMPTE. They do more and more in the video areas, and so I think SMPTE should be there to show expertise and connect the dots and update each other on what we're doing. So I think that's an interesting partnership. We started talking about joint meetings to do some cross-pollination and to get maybe IETF people more involved in SMPTE and SMPTE people more involved in IETF. ISO, that's a pleasure I have to take care of. We are the, SMPTE is the ANSI Secretariat for the ISO TC36 group, that's digital cinema in ISO. I find it quite interesting, actually, and we're going to have a face-to-face meeting, a face-to-face plenary in October of this group, the digital cinema group, in around ATC, either before or at the end. So we're going to see more information about that when we get closer to the date. There are other ways how SMPTE standards get into ISO. AXF is an example for that. So there are two parts, really. There's the digital cinema way of getting it into ISO, and then we have a fast-track kind of process to quickly get SMPTE standards into ISO. ATSC, we're a founding member. Yes, so I'm on the board, which I think is a great honor, and we have a close relationship through that. I'm trying to be on all the board meetings, which is sometimes a bit hard, but it's generally to support each other. If there are efforts in ATSC which are a better fit for SMPTE, then we should do them in SMPTE, and if there's anything developed in SMPTE which has an effect on ATSC, they should know about it, right, so they can build their infrastructure accordingly. There would be, for example, now HDR dynamic metadata, right? So that's one of the efforts we're talking about. It's also to support ATSC 3.0, and I don't know if the course is already online. We developed a course, right, for ATSC 3.0 together with ATSC to update people on what ATSC 3.0 is about and how to implement it, right? So we should support ATSC 3.0. W3C is, I think, dormant at the moment. That's on my plate to revive that contact, and then my next pet project will be ITU, and figure out how we can play a role there. I think really, if you look at this, the upshot is really SMPTE is a global business. We should be represented in these organizations, and we should be present and update people. This is the SMPTE leadership celebrating there's Barbara, different hairstyle, Pat and Bruce, and your guess who the guy in the middle is. So, latest standards, this is, I think, from January. Yeah, those are all published in January, and there's a digital cinema standard. DPX is not dead, so there's a format extension for HDR and white color gamut, so people are still using DPX. There is quite a few BXF documents which were updated, extended new features, errors fixed. Dolby Atmos bitstream specification out, RDD 29. And then lastly, for the cinema people, colorimetry of P3 color space, which always surprised me that wasn't a standard already. So that's out now, and a SMPTE standard. I think that's great. Moving on, top downloads. I was a bit surprised because the top download is, this is from December. 12 gig SDI overview document. If you haven't seen these overview documents, they're really interesting, big charts of how all these different streams and... yeah, oh, they're free. So some of the few documents which are free, right? But followed by 6G SDI overview and similar kind of graphic, right? And then all the ST2110 standards are up there, so it's quite popular, right? We have an update, I guess, on the ST2084, so that came out as well. It was just interesting for me that SDI is still so prevalent, right? So in-your-face IP. SDI is not dead yet, so there's still a lot of SDI around. And I think it solves a lot of the 4K workflow issues. Next up, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about another project I have, and that's the PTP Security Study Group. That's really focused on ST 2059, and it's focusing on a low-hanging fruit. We didn't want to boil the ocean. It's just do something which we can do quick, which has a high impact, and that's PTP security. Look at the infrastructure, PTP infrastructure, how to protect it against attacks. Short project, 6 to 9 months, hopefully. There's supposed to be an interim report by NAB. Hopefully we get that out. And then we're targeting August for the full report. And then maybe there's going to be a bigger security discussion. We're shying away from it because it's a really, really big topic. So it's more likely that we have a small project which has an impact again, and we can finish really quickly and in a short turnaround. That's it. Thank you very much. There's still hope. And if you have any questions, contact me. My email address is there. And I want to draw this out just to hear the horn.
Thomas, I'm afraid that's all the time we have.
Where's
and
the horn?
Come on up, Peter.
Oh.